Recently, I got called on in a comment. I know you guys don't see this on a regular basis, but I do. A while ago on this channel, and Austin will toss this in post for the YouTube edit, we did a discussion piece on Taylor Swift sort of like ruining the vinyl industry, because every single Taylor Swift release entails a host of different vinyl variants, just an endless ocean of vinyl variants of every release, so that she could basically like max out the sales on each album and drain the money. Every single member of her audience having to buy like a 5 vinyl variant minimum, like just draining their wallets, just squeezing, just wringing them out. Like Taylor likes to take her audience like this every single time there's a new album. And then she's like, okay, all right, here's one vinyl variant. And here's another vinyl variant. And here's another vinyl variant. And here's one more. And she just bleeds them dry until she has basically, like, you know, run out of variants that she can offer them. And it's really kind of created a new meta in the music industry and in the pop industry these days, to where now it's become pretty much standard with every album release. In order to like stay relevant on the Billboard charts, like, you have to offer all these variants. It's really kind of like, you know, you could even call it an innovation on her part. You know, she is like kind of set a new standard in a lot of ways. Now, as a result of this, every single time any pop girly does any additional variants of anything, the Taylor Swift fans come calling to be like, oh, is Anthony Fantano going to call this out as well? And the answer is, like, maybe I will offhandedly mention it, but the fact of the matter is, this is just further proving the point of that original video, that all artists are doing this now because Taylor Swift has like helped sort of cast the die of the business model, because this is just the way the pop girlies compete with the other pop girlies now. It just is what it is. And this is also a very funny post to sort of like throw out on the internet while simultaneously Taylor Swift is trying to max out sales again on the release of this new Toy Story song, doing 3 different CD versions of the same single all at once with just like different original vocal performances, I guess, on each different CD version of the thing. It's ridiculous. It's preposterous. And honestly, many magnitudes worse than whatever the hell Olivia Rodrigo is doing here with this like 7-inch. So anyway, of course, I responded to this in a very snippy way, because I am not above responding. And I apologize for that. So, you know, people pressing me on Olivia Rodrigo, doing some 7-inch stuff, doing some variant stuff. And I, in a very sort of tongue-in-cheek way, justified it, saying, okay, but Olivia needs to drop multiple variants of her records because she never knows what songs Taylor and her co-writers are going to demand retroactive credits on. The girl deserves to do more than just break even, you know? And that's true. And that's true. Now, it's kind of funny. Originally, there was a community note on here, because the Swiftie audience, the Swiftie sort of gang on Twitter, is like one of the most aggressive and really, frankly, like abusive and gaslighty fandoms that are on the internet, and apparently like will enact community notes on you that aren't even factually accurate or addressing the thing that you originally say. The community note that was here at one point said that there was never a lawsuit to pull credits for Taylor Swift on Olivia's songs from Sour. So as I said, nobody said lawsuit. Not every post hoc song credit happens because of a filed lawsuit. Learn your music history. I'm not going to get gaslit by a bunch of bots who have never filled out a job application, and I'm not. There was a song on this record, 1 step forward, 3 steps back. This track actually does feature a Taylor Swift interpolation of the song New Year's Day, which comes off of, what is it? Reputation. The vocal melodies and even the piano section on that track, like clearly just like straight up ripping off like that track. And what most likely happened, because there was not a lawsuit, and there were discussions apparently behind the scenes when this record was being released about giving some kind of credit. There clearly was some kind of like agreement for credits going on behind the scenes so that there wouldn't be a lawsuit, because it clearly was pulling from Taylor Swift's song. And in the midst of those agreements, there may have also been a push on top of that to say, hey, this part also kind of sounds similar to a part on Taylor Swift's Cruel Summer. The Swifties are correct in arguing that, yes, there was in fact no actual filed lawsuit from Taylor and those who own her publishing in terms of like twisting Olivia's arm and making her give credits on those songs. But that doesn't mean that there wasn't like a backroom agreement and a discussion and some pressure being placed on Olivia and her team to sort of say, hey, listen, you clearly interpolated this one song. We're going to get credits on it. That's great. Love that. Fantastic. But we've heard through the record, or have sort of seen you, unfortunately, admitting on camera that this specific song also inspired you.
But I wanted like the last bridge to kind of like go crazy, and I love Cruel Summer. It's one of my favorite songs ever. I love the like the yelly vocals in it, like the harmonized yells that she does. I feel like they're like super electric and like moving, and so I wanted to do something like that.
Even though when you listen to Deja Vu and you listen to Cruel Summer, it is not a note for note comparison similarity. There is not a melody on Deja Vu that is the same melody from Cruel Summer, in the same way that you could say, yeah, these piano parts from One Step Forward, Three Steps Back and these piano parts from New Year's Day are pretty much the same. The vocal melodies, you could line them up and they're pretty damn similar. There's a real clear similarity there, musically and instrumentally. What Olivia did on Deja Vu is merely sort of like, hey, this one artist here who also inspired me on this other track did these harmonized shouts, and I'm going to attempt to do something similar on my track, which when you're getting into that territory, it's kind of muddy territory. It's muddy waters that I feel like if you actually care about art and you actually care about the creativity, like the freedom of creativity in the modern music industry, I feel like those are doors you don't want to fucking open up, especially if you're Taylor Swift, because Taylor Swift is no stranger to ripping off the aesthetics or the instrumental palettes of her biggest and greatest inspirations over the years, which is sort of like, you know, the point that I'm making here ultimately following this. Can we get a community note on how Lana should get credit for writing Cardigan, since it rips off every element of her style with no creativity or buffer whatsoever? If you guys remember Cardigan from the Folklore era, I'm sorry, but that is a Lana Del Rey song. That is a Lana Del Rey fucking song. The pianos, the moody atmosphere, even the way Taylor Swift sort of inflects there and sort of sings in this kind of like lower, slower tone of her voice. Like that is a Lana Del Rey song dead to rights. And she even did a Lana Del Rey appearance on another track that is also a ripoff of a Lana Del Rey song. I feel like Taylor was almost like doing a mea culpa there and being like, okay, listen, I totally unabashedly ripped off your sound, so I will like actually have you involved in my music. If you want to go back even further than that, like create more of a kind of, you know, one-to-one scenario in terms of like intergenerational inspiration, how many songs in the Taylor Swift catalog, especially in the early years, can Shania Twain go after Taylor Swift over? Even the new Taylor Swift single for the fucking Toy Story soundtrack, she is right back in her Shania Twain bag. I think it's been like a point of at least a couple of years since she's like made another song that had like such an overt Shania Twain influence. Like if Taylor and her team is going to go after young songwriters like Olivia Rodrigo, I feel like Taylor should pay some Shania Twain retribution or something, because Shania deserves some credit for inspiring Taylor Swift in the same way Taylor clearly inspired Olivia Rodrigo, and her publishers apparently felt owed money for doing so. So I don't really get why Taylor should get off scot-free for ripping off other artists over and over and over again when she and her publishers clearly think Olivia shouldn't get away with it. All of Taylor's music is just watered down version of something else. Honestly, a lot of country music copies just other country music. It's true. It's true. And that's exactly why you shouldn't sue or you shouldn't go after someone behind the scenes over just mere aesthetics, production aesthetics, because production aesthetics are so much more in terms of like musical authorship, so much more of a gray area. And again, if you're a Taylor Swift fan who genuinely feels like Taylor Swift and her writers should be getting the millions and millions of dollars, and it has pulled millions of dollars out of Olivia's and Dan Nigro's pockets, these credits from Deja Vu and these credits from One Step Forward, Three Steps Back, there have been articles written on these credits. If they feel like they're entitled to that money, then Taylor Swift should be paying money too to the artists who aesthetically inspired her, because the aesthetics of her early records, again, are not creative, are not dynamic, are not original, and are not interesting. A lot of that shit is ripped off directly from Shania Twain. And while I would argue deeper into Taylor's career, I would say she kind of like hit upon a more distinct sound. Even her more recent releases are not without their moments where she is very clearly, directly, aesthetically inspired by other artists too. Like, again, Lana Del Rey. She has ripped off Lana Del Rey on at least a few occasions, and Lana should be getting credits for Cardigan, in my opinion, because if Lana Del Rey did not exist, Cardigan would not exist. It's just true. Or if those lyrics existed, they would have a very different sound attached to them, because Cardigan does have undeniably a Lana Del Rey type sound. But apparently, there has been a little bit of an ongoing Cold War between the Olivia and the Taylor camps that has been sort of kicked up now as a result of people arguing over these credits and whether or not Olivia was done kind of dirty here, even though there wasn't a formal lawsuit that was fired. A lot of people have been sort of drawing attention to this New York Times Popcast conversation, where Olivia does look quite sad about sort of this, again, kind of weird Cold War dynamic and the perception of her among Taylor's audience of being duplicitous or someone who is a thief or something like that.
You think people wonder those things that were tough for you early in your career? Did that leave a frost between you and other songwriters? Is there a frost between you and Taylor? Is that something that hovers over your mind? Is it something that you think is a construction of the people who are doing internet detective work? How do you view that now that you're a few years removed from the initial kind of ruptures?
I don't know. I think I tried to not let it get to me or upset me. I think I just try to keep it trucking. I think it was so long ago. I think there's no use in harping on it. I just try to make songs that I love and try to be kind and good to other people and supportive of other people. And I've always tried to be like that. And at the end of the day, I think that's all you can do.
Unfortunately, Taylor, her lawyers, her money, and her abusive, bullying, idiotic stan base on Twitter, because it's not the entire Taylor Swift fan base, frankly. Taylor Swift has a very massive, large audience, the vast majority of which are just normal, regular, everyday people. It's really more the ugly and aggressive standum online that is annoying to deal with, and unfortunately pushes forward these false narratives as if every single idea that Taylor farts out is a wholly original concept that wasn't derived from anything or anywhere, which is absolutely, positively not true at all. When it comes to most artists, even my favorite artists, most things are borrowed from somewhere else, and unfortunately the way that a lot of these lawsuits and credit agreements go, sure, there are, legitimate cases where somebody has pulled maybe a bit too much inspiration, writing wise from another artist's work. And it does sort of amount to at least some level of plagiarism to one degree or another. And, maybe some credit is owed, maybe a sample was taken, something like that. I feel like that is totally fair, even if some of those sample agreements in terms of the splits can get pretty ridiculous. But with that being said, I feel like a lot of the times how these things end up ruling is really kind of coming down to whether or not somebody has enough money to throw at the situation. And you have to kind of take into account at this point, Olivia Rodrigo was not quite at the level of popularity that she is now. She probably didn't have the same kind of leverage in the music industry that she does now. She didn't have the amount of money that she does now. And maybe to one degree or another, she was kind of thinking, hey, maybe if I actually try to fight this, I'll get absolutely crushed because this is a person and this is a publisher that has more money, has more aggressive fans. I'll be attacked and slandered online mercilessly if this actually does end up going to court. So she was probably trying to save herself some headaches, but I'm sure there are still some regrets there at the end of the day, because nobody wants to give up millions of dollars of publishing and money or whatever just over deciding to, you know, do your harmonies in a certain section of the song a certain way, which again, in terms of like pulling money out of somebody's pocket, is fucking ridiculous. Yeah, not a good look and really cringe and really embarrassing. And it's funny that the Swifties do not want you talking about it, because ultimately the truth of the matter is here that this is not a good look for Taylor. It makes her look like a bully. It makes her look greedy, and it makes her look weird. And, you know, again, just not a good look. And this is kind of the funny part of this dynamic. A lot of the Swifties like to act like, oh, well, Taylor and Jack and da-da-da-da-da, they didn't know about any of it. And they had no clue. They had no idea. So you're telling me that if Shania Twain or Lana Del Rey did exactly what I just recommended earlier in this stream and start going after their royalties and their splits for certain aesthetic comparisons across particular Taylor Swift tracks, that she wouldn't know? That she wouldn't be putting money toward fighting off those lawsuits, that she would have no fucking idea any of that was going on? She would just be none the wiser and just be like, oh, you know, it's whatever, you know, it's like, oh, giving up a little songwriting credit for a track or two here or there for some inspiration that I took. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Taylor is obsessed with owning her music. And I feel like, you know, every artist has a right to be, to a certain degree. So there's no fucking possible way on the planet that these kinds of decisions or agreements are happening with Taylor just being like, and just having no clue what the fuck is happening. It's ridiculous. Taylor, if anything, should be celebrating Olivia and helping to put her on and, you know, sort of like getting closer to her and aligning with her in any way that she possibly can. But Taylor's almost playing like a little bit of, and I don't think she's like this across the board with all young songwriters out there, but I feel like when it comes to Olivia, Taylor's almost taking a Nicki Minaj type approach. You know, the way that Nicki is sort of like very confrontational and directly against anybody of this new generation who's like replacing her in terms of like importance and relevancy, even though many of them are like so directly inspired by her and a lot of what she's done over the years. But she just takes such an oppositional approach to a lot of her biggest fans and a lot of her kids in the music industry. And I feel like in order to kind of like keep yourself relevant and keep yourself popular and keep yourself on the good side of all of these audiences, like the best thing that you could do is like play ball and embrace these people. I mean, it's like, you know, looking at those early Olivia interviews and seeing sort of like the glow of excitement on her face when she's like so passionate about the fact that like, yeah, this song that I wrote was so deeply inspired by this other artist and this other song that I absolutely positively love and is like one of my favorite artists of all time. And you're going to sort of either advertently or inadvertently play a role in sort of like stamping out that passion by pulling money out of this artist's pocket and dampening their glow. Olivia is probably going to be thinking twice every step forward from here about whether or not anything in her music sounds a little too Taylor coded, because of probably the fear of like, you know, those lawyers coming through again to be like, hey, so we sort of heard this part that kind of sounds a little bit like Taylor Swift. So you might actually need to pony up some dough there. Very, 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 in my opinion, exploitative and weird.